Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I offer one-on-one angel sessions, which are wonderful. They take place over the phone. Each session is 60 minutes, and you can contemplate it as a conversation with the divine, where we will help you connect more with your angelic team and your own divine guidance. And each session is unique and filled with so much love. And if you're ever interested in scheduling your own session, you can visit my website at illuminatingsouls.com. And I typically can schedule you in within a few days or so. I'm not one of these practitioners that has a months-long waiting list. That would stress me out. I like to be able to schedule as I go. So if you ever feel guided to book your own session, reach out, and it would be a blessing and an honor to facilitate a session for you. I also offer wonderful classes that take place over Zoom. Usually I have a new class that starts every 6 weeks or so. My classes are small in size, so you will have plenty of space and time for your own unique, beautiful, sacred process of whatever we are moving through in the class. And if you visit my website, you can sign up for my mailing list, and that way you'll be in the know of everything that I have coming up. I also post daily over on Facebook, so I invite you to visit me there as well. But for now, it is time for Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, the podcast that blends angelic love and story time to produce for you an hour's worth of content that can keep you amused, but also has the potential to be boring enough that it's easy to fall asleep. Somewhat riveting sometimes, and mundane at others. Throughout the episode, I will keep this volume, this timbre. There aren't going to be any loud surprises. So my intention is to create this cozy, sacred space where you can release whatever's come before this moment and come into a sanctuary filled with love for you. It's the thing that really draws me to working with the angels, is the wellspring of divine love that is here for us. And this love is not based in any kind of polarity. The human consciousness, I think we have a really hard time with the concept of unconditional love. Because if we have to talk about unconditional love, clearly then there is conditional love, and love exists on a polarity. Divine love has no polarity. It simply exists. And as I've shared with you before, the best metaphor I can give you for divine love is the sun. That our consciousness can accept that the sun exists and it shines upon all of us without prejudice. Whether you're a good person or an awful person, you still get sunshine. Sunshine still flows. And you have the capacity, God willing, to partake in the sun. And the sun brings us energy. It helps us create vitamin D and all these other biochemical responses. And we see it in our pets. Yes, our cats and dogs somehow seek out that little ray of sunlight during the day, and as it moves, they move. They have this innate knowing that the sun will keep them warm. Divine love is that times a million, times a jillion. Divine love is that and so much more. And when we open to it, when we acknowledge its availability to us, it allows for a blossoming to take place. My experience is the world is different because I'm aware of divine love. And if this divine love is available for me, it is available for you. It is available for every molecule of consciousness, of energy, of light in this universe. So just take a nice deep breath in and release whatever that is up for releasing for you, knowing this divine love, this empathy, this understanding, this deep, compassionate heart of God is here for you. When I'm doing angel sessions, it's not unusual for someone to say, my angels must be so annoyed with me because I keep asking them for help. And that's based in this concept that we can overreach and over ask for divine love and help. You would never think of apologizing to the sun. Like, I'm so sorry, sun, can you bring me some more warmth? It exists. It exists. So receive this love that flows to you. That the angels know the complexity of our human experience. We are divine, wise beings that come into this human lifetime. And as my angels call it, we go through the portal of amnesia and we forget everything that's come before. And this life journey is about finding our way back, if we can, back home to love, to God, to our own innate light and beauty while we're still here. And so my hope is the vibration, the concepts, the love that I share with you here helps you deepen in your connection with this wellspring of love that is here for you. And just because a part of you knows this exists, and maybe you have had wonderful experiences with it before, it doesn't mean that your personality self is always going to know that it's here. I forget about opening to the angels, and I do this work all the time. My biggest work days are typically Mondays and Tuesdays. By Friday, I'm like, angels? What angels? I mean, listen, I know they really exist. I just mean as the earth girl that is me. I am not in 24/7 ongoing conversation with the angels because I have a life to live. This life is your life. And it's not meant that we are forever phoning our angels, asking for guidance and assistance every minute of every day, because this life is your life and it's my life, and it's meant to be a realm of free will where we learn and we grow and we get messy and we forget, and we have this profoundly amazing emotional body to navigate. We have experiences, the unexpected happens. We have hormones, We have the unexpected. Did I say that already? If not, it deserves to be talked about twice. We have doubt, we have fear, we have old memories that show up at the oddest of times and feel like a setback. It's complicated embodying this human consciousness. And when we have this wellspring of divine love as an elixir to support us, my experience has been that it makes it so much easier to understand and to make peace with the human experience. I have more love and compassion for myself than I've ever had before. When I'm struggling with something, because I struggle, I'm a human being. I'm an emotional human being. I have so much compassion for the part of me that is struggling. I no longer criticize those parts of me. I think of those parts of me as aspects that are really requiring love and compassion. I think self-love is often misunderstood as some sort of narcissistic, I am so awesome kind of love. My experience of self-love is rooted in self-compassion and the awareness that we are divine beings having a human experience, and the human experience is a messy one, and it's a wonderful one. It's everything. It's every color of the rainbow, every emotion. The human experience is wondrous, and it's hard. So divine love is this elixir that can flow in and help bring us balance and altitude and understanding for what it is we are experiencing. And that is my hope for these episodes I create for you, is that this become an oasis of love that help bring you some perspective, a different perspective perhaps than the one that you had just a few hours before, where you can see yourself through the eyes of love and come into a deeper space of understanding. So, the angels are already here, but I love sharing the ritual of calling them in with you. So if you are preparing for bed, I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in as the angels bring their energy closer to you. And if you are listening during your waking hours, stay awake, and the angels are also bringing their energy closer to you. So beautiful angels on high, I rejoice at this opportunity to come together with you, and I ask that you amplify the presence of divine love for each of our beloveds listening to this message. Angels, I ask that you help lift any fear or doubt or worry, especially that which has no merit, that which has no purpose, to help clear this away and replace it with divine inspiration and light. So dear ones, just take some nice deep breaths in. The angels want you to know that you are doing so much better than you know. You are in the process of growth. You are a cosmic surfer, and you are navigating the waves of change that are coming into this realm. And there are wonderful experiences coming to you. The angels want to remind you that you are a big and beautiful soul, and you are a bringer of light, and you have the capacity to bring so much goodness into this world. And the angels are so grateful for all the ways you bring kindness and light and love into this life. You are a blessing in this world, and we are so profoundly grateful for the gift of you. So just take a deep breath in. I feel such compassion coming through, and I hear these words. You are not letting anyone down. You are not falling short. You are a human being navigating some very complex criteria. And you're doing so much better than you know. Take a deep breath in and allow the angels to honor you and celebrate all that you are. You are a miracle from on high. As they say at Agape Spiritual Center, you are one of the ways that God's love is made visible in this world. So just breathe, allowing more of your true, authentic spirit to return to you. As the angels help you remember your wholeness and help you remember who you are as a beloved of God's heart. And just breathe. And whenever you're ready, if bed is your intention, if sleep is your intention, you can drift off and the angels will stay with you. And if this is your waking time, then the angels will still be with you. So whether you're going to stay awake or fall asleep, the love is here for you. And we're going to move on into story time. And for this story time, I have another community cookbook for us to flip through. And I don't recall where I got this one, if I purchased it off of eBay or I found it at the recent estate sale that I went through. I'm thinking it must be eBay, though, because it's from Chicago. And it was published in 1939. This is a collection of tested recipes contributed by members and friends of the Sauganash community. And it's published under the auspices of the Sauganash Community Church Guild of Chicago, Illinois. So a little bit about Sauganash. And for those of you who are from Chicago, forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. Sauganash, I believe, is a community on the north side of Chicago that is adjacent to Lincolnwood. So if you're coming from north to south, it's Skokie and Lincolnwood, and then the Sauganash community. For instance, the Whole Foods on Peterson, I believe, would be considered in Sauganash. So this is a neighborhood that is close to where I grew up in Skokie. So 1939, what's happening in the lives of a housewife? Because truly in 1939, the majority of cooking is being done by women. We're still in our traditional gender roles. In most homes, the men are working and the women are staying at home raising the children and making all of the meals. This is the era of the transition into electric-powered refrigeration and freezers. Some people still have ice boxes, and the ice box would be a refrigeration unit where a big block of ice would be placed in the rear of the unit, and that would keep the food cool. So it was a non-electric form of refrigeration. But certainly in the Sauganash community in 1939, it was a middle to upper class community then, and I'm quite certain that they had the means for electricity, and probably many homes had refrigerators. But the refrigerators back then were not the units of today. The freezers were very small, but still to have a reliable form of refrigeration really gave a lot of freedom to our housewives of 1939. Grocery shopping would not be done in the giant stores we know of today. They were likely shopping in neighborhood supermarkets that were small, where perhaps grocers knew your name and you had a butcher that you went to and a baker, and food consumption was different. There was some canned food, so there were some prepared foods in terms of canned green beans or Campbell's soup. And so the housewives of 1939 needed to know how to be creative with their food. So we're going to flip through this and pay homage to the women of that era. Again, I love community cookbooks because they reflect of the very real way that women prepared food. A can of this, a cup of that. It was assumed you already had some kind of cooking skills, so if there's a recipe for a pie, it's not unusual for the recipe to say, make a pie crust. Like, you don't need me to teach you that part. Make your pie crust, and then this is what you will put in the pie crust. We start with a dedication and a preface. So this is dedicated to that small group of women who organized the Sauganash Community Church Guild on June 9th, 1926. Just as an aside, my mom was born in 1925 and my dad was born in 1921. So that's also just a time reference from my own parents to when this book was written, again, 1939. The preface says, the inspiration for this book has been the neighborly spirit of our community life. We wish to perpetuate in these printed pages that air of true hospitality which has for so long characterized the homes of this community. We acknowledge with gratitude all recipes contributed. The large number submitted and many duplications have required the elimination of many. Some have come from far across the sea. Others are the product of modern testing kitchens. Economical dishes are included, but also there will be found elaborate ones which will lend a festive air to any party. We hope you will find here the variety that you wish and the help that you need. We present it to you with that purpose in mind and trust it will carry with it much of the joy that we have had in its preparation. Luella Karsten. And this particular cookbook, we start with the breads section, and immediately I'm delighted by a recipe for butterscotch bread. If you listened to the ice cream episode, you will know that I have a fondness for butterscotch, which is an often overlooked flavor profile because caramel has been at the top of the flavor profile list these past 10 years or so. But butterscotch is not caramel. It is its own flavor profile that I am a fan of. So this is butterscotch bread. Again, I don't eat sugar, so I'm not going to make this. I know you probably get tired of me saying this. I just don't want you to think that, I'm making these recipes at home and eating them all. I am eating and feasting on these recipes in my imagination, which is a wonderful way to consume food. So we're going to have 2 eggs, 2 cups of brown sugar. That's where all this flavor comes from. That's a lot of brown sugar, 2 cups of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of butter, 4 cups of flour, 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 cups of sour cream, and 1 cup of chopped pecans. So this is a rich recipe. So we're going to beat the eggs in brown sugar and butter. Sift the dry ingredients alternately with cream. Last, add nuts. Bake 45 minutes for 350 degrees, and it makes 2 bread loaves. And this is from Mrs. Herbert Langenbacher. Okay, if I still ate sugar, I would absolutely make this recipe. It sounds delicious and easy. There is a recipe called Never Fail Biscuit, and then in parentheses it says, for a bride, right? So the bride is just learning how to cook all of these things. 1 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 heaping tablespoon of shortening, a half a cup of milk and a pinch of salt. Sift the dry ingredients, cut in the shortening and add liquid. It says do not roll out, just pat and use a small cutter and then bake in the oven for 400 degrees from Mrs. G.W. Morris. There are a lot of other biscuit recipes. This one sounds very good. Southern biscuits, because if you're going to have biscuits, have a southern biscuit, right? 4 cups of flour, 1 pint of thick sweet cream, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 tablespoon of salt. Mix, and I hope I'm getting this right. They use a small T, I think, for teaspoon, and a capital T for tablespoon. So I don't know, if you're going to make these recipes, you may want to double check the amounts. Mix flour, salt, and baking powder thoroughly. Add the cream. Roll the dough moderately thin and cut with a small cutter. Place in a hot oven and bake to a golden brown and serve hot with butter. And this is from Mrs. Clarence Cross. I'll also add, like back in the 20s and 30s, the ovens may not have had the specificity of 350 degrees. It would be a hot oven, a low heat oven. So it's interesting that she says place in a hot oven. I'm assuming that's probably around 400 degrees. Now we have a little ad here for Sauganash Park, the subdivision. Beautiful. Model homes now under construction. I was right. It is on Peterson, 4140 Peterson Road. The phone numbers back then had alphabet. So this is Kildare 3135. So it's KIL. Though you go on the rotary phone and you would look at what numbers represent KIL. So KIL 3135. Kildare 3135. Our phone number growing up began with Orchard. Actually, I'm thinking this isn't enough numbers, is it? A phone number now has has 7 numbers. This would have, this is 7 numbers. KIL 3135. It's a sleep podcast. The fact that I have just taken out 2 minutes to figure out this phone number, I'm going to just leave that in because it's a sleep podcast. Also, you can go get your curtains at Devon Curtain Company. It's at 6334 Western, so at Western and Devon. And now Devon has a wonderful eclectic group of shops these days. We still have lots of bread. There's something for Bismarcks. Dissolve half a cake of yeast in 1 cup of warm milk. Add 1 egg. Butter the size of a walnut. So we're not even going to tell you just how much. You know how big a walnut is. That's how much butter you're going to use. A pinch of salt and flour, enough to stiffen, but not too stiff. So we're not going to tell you how much flour you're going to need. You're just going to know. And then beat and let it raise, roll, cut, and fry in hot fat. It's a Bismarck. Sounds good. Oh, this one sounds good. Brown bread. A half a cup of sugar. A half a cup of molasses. I was all in at molasses. 2 eggs. 2 tablespoons of melted lard. I know that sounds terrible, but back then you were reusing everything. If you were in a Jewish household, you had the chicken fat, the schmaltz. If you were in a non-Jewish household, you probably had the bacon grease, right? So we were reusing the animal fat. 2 teaspoons of soda, 2.5 cups of graham flour, 1.5 cups of white flour, 2 cups of sour milk, which I think is also buttermilk, right? And half a cup of raisins. Oh, you're going to make this in cans. So fill cans half full and bake 1 hour in a slow oven. Again, we're assuming that the 1939 housewife knows what we're talking about. I would imagine it's the coffee can size, right? And this is from Mrs. P.J. Mullen. Ooh, here's another canned bread recipe that sounds really good. Early American brown bread. 1 egg whipped, and then you add a half a cup of molasses, 1.5 cups of sour milk, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of soda, 2 heaping teaspoons of baking powder, 1 cup graham flour, 2 cups cornmeal, and 1 cup of raisins. Put in buttered cans. So on the other brown bread recipe, we would probably want to grease or butter the cans. Put in buttered cans and fill 2/3 full. Cover and steam for 3 hours. If you use one of the new steam pressure cookers, less steaming time is required, about 1.5 hours. And I think this is also how they would make puddings and things like that, right? It would go into the big pot and steam. I have no cooking experience with this. I just watch Call the Midwife, so that's my reference point. I should add that as I record this, it is the morning and I have not yet had breakfast. So if you hear my stomach growling with all these delicious recipes, I will try to edit that out, but I'll just give you that image. I'm like, oh my God, this all sounds so good. Something you should know about me, I am a pastry freak. I love muffins and breads, and I was at the farmer's market on Friday. They have it on Friday. And there's this one vendor, and they just have different kinds of pastries, but breads. So, a Kalmata olive loaf. And then they have zucchini bread and banana bread with or without nuts. And oh my God, do you ever watch these survival movies? Like an asteroid is coming to Earth and everybody's trying to survive. I would go to Costco and I would buy all their muffins and all of their chocolate cake and eat myself into a carb coma until the asteroid hit. Like that would be my idea of, if the world is ending, I am eating a lot of carbs that I have not allowed myself to eat all of these years. It's my own strategy. You don't have to adopt it. I'm just saying, if there's ever news about the asteroid about to hit Earth, and it will be a cataclysmic event, you will find me with stacks of carbs, of pastries, and cakes, and cookies, and bread all around me. Because if I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory, there will be carbs involved. Okay, I don't mean to sound so dark. I hope you can hear my joy at my strategy. Okay, orange bread. This sounds really good. 2 large oranges, peel and separate, and boil in salt water. Interesting, for 5 minutes. Drain and chop. Add 1 cup of water, half a cup of sugar, cook until thick, and then add the following batter: 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of butter, 2 eggs, 1 cup of milk, 3.5 cups of flour, and 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Let raise 20 minutes. Bake in slow oven, 275 degrees Fahrenheit, for 1.25 hours. It makes 2 loaves. Mrs. Joseph Zielinski. I'm telling you, if I ate sugar, I would be making these recipes. They sound so good. Well, here's one I could make: Southern spoon bread. 1 cup of cornmeal. I love breads that have cornmeal in them. 3 cups of milk, or part milk, part water, 2 egg yolks, 3 tablespoons of butter, and 2 egg whites beaten, and salt. You'll know how much salt. Just salt. Pour cornmeal into boiling water. Cook in a double boiler until thick. Stir in beaten yolks and butter. Fold in egg whites. Pour into a buttered pan and bake in oven about half an hour until brown. Serve from casserole with relish or bacon or jam. And this is Mrs. Philip W. Karsten. Okay, you know how I said I would make that? not making it. I have to beat egg whites. That's labor. I have to put something into a double boiler. So right there are two things I don't want to do. So I would not make the spoon bread. It sounded easier before I knew what I had to do. So I'm going to opt out. Oh, blueberry muffins. Who does not like a good blueberry muffin? 1/4 cup of butter, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1½ cups of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 1½ cups of milk, and 1 cup of fresh blueberries. And you put it all together. They have bran muffins and date muffins. I love muffins. Can I just tell you how much I love muffins? Muffins are a genius form of food, as far as I'm concerned. Ooh, here's something called a fluffy muffin. A fluffy muffin. Okay, just say that out loud if you're awake. Just say fluffy muffin, and just notice how delightful that is in your mouth. Fluffy muffin. 1 egg beaten, 1/4 cup of sugar, so not too much sugar. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of milk, 2 cups of flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/4 cup of shortening melted. Add sugar to beaten egg, then add milk, sift dry ingredients, and add to wet ingredients. Lastly, add melted shortening. Do not overmix. Muffins should be stirred lightly, poured into greased muffin pans. Makes 1 dozen. And you're going to bake them at 425 degrees. And this is from Mrs. Joseph Lane. They're graham muffins and oatmeal muffins. Pancakes. Who does not like a good pancake? Oh, I love pancakes too. Okay, I should really have breakfast soon. I don't record these after I've had breakfast because my stomach gurgles as I'm digesting. And so I have to keep stopping the recording to stop the gurgle sound. So I don't eat before I do these things because my stomach is quieter. It's one of the side effects of having had bariatric surgery. It's not that my stomach is super loud, and if we were together, I would be embarrassed by it, but I use a really good microphone, and it picks it up. It sounds like a horror film. So, I don't know why I felt the need to share that with you. A little behind the scenes here at Sleepy Bedtime Blessings. Oh, here, Henrici's German pancakes. Have you ever had a German pancake? They are delicious. So we're going to take 1/2 cup of milk, 1/2 cup of flour, 3 eggs, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and use a 10-inch spider, which is a kind of pan. Beat the eggs, add flour, salt, and milk, beating all the while. Take a cold spider, spread on the butter, turn in batter, and bake in a hot oven for half an hour, gradually reducing heat. Place on a hot platter and serve with powdered sugar and a slice of lemon. Mrs. William B. Wallace. My parents' favorite place to go for like an anniversary or a birthday was Walker Brothers Pancake House on Green Bay Road. And my mom would always get the blueberry waffle, and my dad would always get eggs and the thick cut bacon with coffee. So I have a lot of fond memories of pancakes and waffles and things like that. So they also have superior pancakes, Swedish pancakes, butter rolls, cheese rolls, hot cross buns. The hot cross buns, it's like a long paragraph. So I'm not going to read that one to you. It's too much work. I wouldn't make them. If a recipe is that complicated, I'm not going in. Okay, I have to read this one to you just because they are called magic butter rolls. Well, I want a magical butter roll. And I do not know if you have yet listened to the Beverly Hillbillies episode where I talked about my childhood confusion about the concept of vittles. But I bet vittles included magic butter rolls. So 3 cups of bread flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, a half a cup of butter, a 1/4 cup of milk, a 1/4 cup of hot water, 2 cakes of yeast, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 3 eggs, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, you're going to mix it all together. There's like a whole paragraph of instructions. It involves putting the dough in some kind of thin cloth, such as a cheesecloth. Okay, way too much work. I know they're saying they're magical, but way too much work for me. I just like the title. They have icebox rolls, Parker House rolls. There's one called Good Rolls, potato icebox rolls. I love potato bread. I haven't had that in a long time. Coffee cake. Who does not like a good piece of coffee cake? $1 million apple cake. Oh, there's a lot of ingredients here. Do you want me to read you this one? It comes from 2 different women. 2 tablespoons of butter, these are good recipes because they don't have much sugar, a 1/4 cup of sugar. That's not a lot. 1½ cups of flour, 1 egg, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, a pinch of salt, half a cup of milk, approximately. And we're going to top it with a 1/4 pound of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 2 rounded tablespoons of flour, and grated nutmeg to taste, and 5 or 6 medium-sized apples. I bet this is delicious. Flake dry ingredients together thoroughly. Add beaten egg mixed with milk, but not too much milk because the dough must not be too soft, and spread in greased tin, approximately 13 by 9 inches with floured hands. Cut apples in eighths and place firmly on cake and cover with topping which has been flaked together. Oh my God, that sounds so good. Bake about 3/4 of an hour in a 370-degree Fahrenheit oven. From Mrs. E.S. Sackerson and Mrs. Joseph Sauer. And they also have a Dutch apple cake. So at Walker Brothers, it's also known as the Original Pancake House, so you might have an Original Pancake House near you. They have this apple pancake, which is basically a giant cake with caramelized apple goodness. It's so decadent and good. I think you can mail order them, maybe. So, apple pancakes for the win. A Blitzkuchen. Kuchen is like a coffee cake. My nanny, my grandma, used to make wonderful kuchen that my sister now makes. 1 cup of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 4 eggs unbeaten, 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So basically with a kuchen, you are making a dough and then you put a filling in it and you roll it up. So we're going to cream the butter and sugar, add vanilla, and then the eggs one at a time, beating well, then the flour and the baking powder mixed. Keep 1 egg white out and spread on top of the baked cake, and then you sprinkle it with streusel. Bake in a moderate oven, and the streusel is 2 tablespoons of flour, 4 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, and half a tablespoon of cinnamon, and you mix with a pastry mixer until the size of a pea. And this is from Mrs. Herman Boning. Can you believe we are only on page 18? Clearly, this Sauganash community cookbook will require many episodes to go through. I won't do them all in a row, but we will get through the breads. Perhaps we will mosey on into cakes as well. We've got coffee cakes. Again, love a good coffee cake. Something called crans. I don't know what that is. Kranz. It involves letting something stand overnight in a cool place. So again, too much work for me. Icebox coffee cake. And refrigerators were called ice boxes before the refrigerators were electric. So my grandmother, my nanny, used to call the electric refrigerator the ice box. So in 1939, the term icebox was being used for both the non-electric form of refrigeration that required the block of ice, as well as the electric refrigerator. So icebox coffee cake, 1/3 pound of butter. So already this is going to be good because we've got butter happening. 3 egg yolks beaten, 4 cups of flour, 4 tablespoons of sugar, so not a lot of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 C's of yeast. I'm assuming that's 2 cakes of yeast, and 1 cup of milk. Sift dry ingredients, add butter, mix like pie crust. Again, we're assuming you know how to do that. Dissolve yeast in about 1/3 cup of warm milk with a little sugar. Add all together. Let stand overnight, again an overnight recipe, in refrigerator. Divide in 2 parts and then roll out to the size of about 12 by 20. Place in greased pans. The filling is then put through the center lengthwise. Then fold sides and ends over like an envelope. Let raise 1 hour, then spread with melted butter, cinnamon, and sugar, and bake 1 hour in a moderate oven. And the filling is, we're going to soak 1/2 pound of dried apricots overnight. Boil until thick by adding 4 tablespoons of sugar and small can of crushed pineapple. Let cool, and any other fruit can be used. From Mrs. Hicks and Mrs. H.E. Hansen. Something you should know about me: if it requires me to roll out bread or pastry dough, I won't do it, because then flour gets everywhere and I hate having to clean it up. So I will not be making that. A quick coffee cake. Let's see how quick it is. 1½ cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of mace or nutmeg, 6 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of shortening, 1 egg, and 1/2 cup of milk or water. Sift dry ingredients, cut in shortening. Combine egg and milk, add first mixture, and stir to smooth dough. Turn into shallow greased pan and cover with top mixture. Bake in hot oven, 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. And the top mixture is 4 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon or mace, and 1 teaspoon of butter. And we're going to mix that with a fork and scatter over the top of the coffee cake. That's the streusel topping, which is magic. It's the magical part of a babka, of a coffee cake, where you take sugar and butter and flour and you mix it all together and it gets crumbly, and then you put it on top of something. I made babka once because my sister had made babka and challah for one of our family gatherings, and they were so delicious I had to make them. And I made extra streusel topping because that's the best part. So my babka had a lot of streusel topping on it, and it was fabulous. Okay, apple strudel. Okay, does that just make you happy? Apple strudel? To me, apple strudel is such a happy food. Like when strudel is involved, something good is happening. You're at a brunch. Someone's mother or grandmother has made strudel. There's a cup of coffee, probably. Strudel is a very happy food in terms of my own life experience. And it is not easy to make. So God bless the women who were making apple strudel. I think probably the last time I had strudel, I had gotten it at Kaufman's in Skokie. So if you ever are in the Skokie area, Kaufman's Delicatessen and Bakery on Dempster is an oasis of amazing Jewish food. They have the bakery part where there are bagels and babka and rugula and strudel. And then there is the deli section where they make the world's best tuna fish that involves sugar somehow. I don't know how the sugar gets in there or how much sugar they use. It is the most phenomenal tuna fish ever, as well as everything else that a good Jewish deli should have, including kugel, latkes, everything you could want. Amazing soup. Okay, ode to Kaufman's. Just saying. I have not been to Chicago since 2019, so I have not partaken, but I think about it fondly. Let's go back to our apple strudel recipe, though, because it's as close as we're going to get. So we're going to take, well, I'm not really going to take, but if you were making it, we're going to take 1 3/4 cup of flour, 1/8 of a pound of butter or a 1/4 cup, 2 teaspoons of sour cream, and this helps to soften the dough to stretch because a strudel dough has to be very, very thin. A good 1/2 glass of water, 1 egg yellow. Double this mixture. Can still be made with 1 egg. I don't know what that means. The egg yolk, probably 1 egg yellow. So that would be the egg yolk. 1/2 cake of yeast, 1 lemon peel grated, 1 slice of dry white bread. I don't know how we're going to use that. Cinnamon, 6 to 8 coarse shredded apples, and 3/4 of a pound of butter. So we're going to mix the flour and the butter very, very well. Now, I don't know if we're doing the 1/4 cup of butter or the 3/4 cup of butter here with the flour, but if I'm in 1939 and I'm making this, I will understand. Make a hole in the center of ingredients. Take water and yeast and mix. Add egg and sour cream, then add the flour and butter mixture and work it in very well. If not very soft, then add a little more water. Let it rest in a warm room, never in a cold, for 1/2 hour. Meanwhile, get apples, breadcrumbs, grated lemon peel, sugar, and cinnamon ready. Okay, so we're going to take our 1 slice of dry white bread and make breadcrumbs. That's inferred, because it's 1939 and we know these things. So, take the dough and roll flat on a large board and let it rest for 8 minutes. Take a cloth and spread over a large table. Place dough on it and stretch it as thin as possible so it looks like tissue paper. See, this is why it's hard. Then pull off the thick dough around the edges. Take part of the melted butter and sprinkle all over with a teaspoon. At the edge of the length of the table, sprinkle breadcrumbs about 3 inches wide. Add apples, pour sugar over to taste, lemon peel, and cinnamon. Fold dough over on each end of the table to seal the edges. Then sprinkle remaining butter on folded over dough. Roll up by pulling the cloth and put in buttered pan and bake 1/2 to 3/4 of an hour at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Cut while warm. Mrs. Alice Maturin. The love that must go into making every strudel. And you know, I think probably so many of us now have feasted on episodes of the Great British Bake Off, and we know about lamination, right? Dough and butter and lamination, and I don't know if they have a strudel episode, but I'll have to go look. So, a Swedish tea ring, I don't know what that is, but it involves sugar and butter and milk, so it must be delicious. A yeast coffee cake, and then waffles. Love waffles. So, that was just the bread section. We have so much. We're only through page 21, and there are 192 pages. Maybe the bread section just took a long time because I love bread. I had to read every recipe because they were just amazing. Oh, but there is a pastry section and a cake section. In the pastry section, there is something called taffy apple pie. Okay, should I just skip to that one? Okay, I'm just gonna go off on my promised content of just going through the bread section. Taffy apple pie. So mixed crust. Again, 1939. You know how to make a pastry crust. 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1 cup of flour, and half a cup of chopped nuts. So peel and slice 4 large green apples and place them in layers, adding half a cup of sugar in all between the layers of apples. Cover but spread crumb crust evenly over the apples. Bake in a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for 1 hour. Cut into squares and serve hot or cold with or without whipped cream. Taffy apple pie. Must be delicious. Okay, and there's a frosting section, ice cream and frozen desserts. Then just desserts. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. So, for now, we did our homage to breads and the women of Sauganash in 1939. And I hope that you have enjoyed this walk down memory lane with me and enjoyed imagining some of these delicious dishes. So, thank you for allowing me to keep you company. I'm so grateful for our time together. I love you, and we're going to connect again soon. So enjoy your sweet dreams of pancakes and coffee cake and other kinds of goodness. And I'll be back with more before you know it. Thank you.